We turn now to Iran and a major development this week which stemmed from allegations of torture and death at a notorious prison. In the protests that followed June's disputed election, Iranian security forces detained thousands of people. Now, the Iranian parliament has issued a scathing report on the Karizak detention center. The parliamentary committee has publicly blamed Tehran's reviled prosecutor general Saeed Mortazavi, an ally of President Ahmadinejad, for the deaths of several men there. And there are calls by conservative members of parliament for more such investigations. CNN's Ivan Watson has more.
The Karizak detention center, a facility with such an appalling record of torture and killings that last summer the Iranian government ordered it closed. It was within these walls that the fates of three very different Iranians became inextricably intertwined. A hardline Tehran prosecutor, a young doctor who saw his job as a holy mission, and a powerful pro-government politician whose son was beaten to death in Karizak. This is Abdul Hussein Rouhalamini at the memorial service for his son, Mohsen. The ceremony was broadcast last summer on state TV. When anti-government demonstrations erupted across Iran last summer, the younger Rouhalamini was one of the estimated thousands of protesters to be detained. But within weeks of arriving at Karizak, he was dead. Initially, the official cause of death was meningitis. But then the father, an influential government insider, objected and demanded an official investigation.
همه مردم این کشور یه خانواده بزرگن دل در گرو اطلاع این کشور دارن و محسن یکی از اونها بود.
This week, a parliamentary investigation announced the security forces at Karizak had gone too far.
Well, an Iranian parliamentary fact-finding committee has released a long-awaited report on the events inside the Karizak facility in southern Tehran. The committee found that 3 inmates died as a result of violence and bad prison conditions.
The committee blamed this man for the prison's brutal conditions. That former hardline Tehran prosecutor, Saeed Mortazavi. Already notorious for shutting down dozens of reformist newspapers, Mortazavi has also been accused by the government of Canada of overseeing the 2003 detention and death in custody of a Canadian-Iranian photographer in another Iranian prison. Mortazavi was never charged.
In 2000, when he shut down the free press in Iran, he was called the butcher of the press. Then after that, after he was involved in murder of Zahra Kazemi, he became known as the murdering magistrate. And so on, he has been sort of the face of the repression that we have seen for nearly a decade in Iran.
The investigation concluded Karizak prisoners suffered harsh corporal punishment, humiliating and insulting techniques. But the report did not mention the tragic case of the young doctor who worked at Karizak prison. At medical school, Ramin Purandarjani was a rising star with a bright future who thanked his parents and professors in this graduation speech.
روح خیلی خیلی بزرگی و مقدسی از اون زمان از ابتدای تاریخ انسان در قلب‌های بزرگی منتقل شده اومده و در لباس سفید امروز به ما به میراث گذاشته شده.
After graduation, Purandarjani had orders to examine prisoners at Karizak prison as part of his mandatory military service. But family members told the Wall Street Journal he began fearing for his life after testifying before Parliament about the prison and refusing to participate in a Karizak cover-up. Then last November, the promising 26-year-old died. Iranian officials first said it was a car accident, then a heart attack, then suicide, then food poisoning. The family wondered to the Wall Street Journal whether he was another victim of Iran's Karizak prison. Ivan Watson, CNN.
We asked anyone from the Iranian government to come on this program. We also asked for the prosecutor Saeed Mortazavi and Abdul Hussein Ruhul Khomeini, father of the protester killed at Kazirak prison. They all declined. But a short time ago, I did speak to Mohammad Marandi, professor of North American Studies at the University of Tehran, about the significance of the parliament censuring Mortazavi, the prosecutor general.
Well, I think it's quite significant, and just a couple of hours ago I spoke to Dr. Ruhul Amini, who is a professor at Tehran Medical University. He is the father of, as you know, of one of the three victims. He said that he was very satisfied both with the committee's findings as well as the general investigation being carried out by the judiciary as well, and the one carried out by the Supreme National Security Council. He said that Ayatollah Khamenei ordered the closure of Kazirak when he heard rumors about the abuses, and this was a day or two or three before the three young men were killed. And he said that the problem was basically that the response of the judge, Mortazavi, was slow, and that if he had, and he blames Mr. Mortazavi for this.
Mr. Marandi, I want to know what you think is going to come next, because there are suggestions that Mr. Mortazavi may be a scapegoat, may be dismissed, but in fact, he seems to still hold his position as Deputy Prosecutor General and has been promoted.
Well, I don't think he's been promoted, but there is an ongoing investigation. And again, Professor Ruhul Amini was telling me that he felt very confident that there will be no scapegoats, but that the judicial process is a slow one and the judiciary is being very careful, and that he believes that all the people involved in the crime will be punished, and that some of them may actually face capital punishment.
Where else do you think this is going to lead? And do you think the government is trying to find ways of rapprochement with the opposition?
Well, I think that is to a large extent already happening. Over the last week, there have been a number of debates between reformists and principalists or conservatives on television, on Iranian television. They've been very lively and they've had a very large audience. It seems that the opposition, which is very divided in itself, is trying to redefine itself. And of course, the principalists or the conservatives, they too are differing factions that have differences among themselves. One other thing that I should add, and that is that Dr. Ruhul Amini also told me that the young physician who died, he apparently himself was, he had committed some offenses that were not very major, but he said that that may have been a reason for suicide, but he does not know if he committed suicide or not, and that the case is still ongoing, and that no one really knows exactly at this point what happened to the young physician.
Why do you think there are all these shifting reasons and explanations by the authorities for the death of Dr. Ramin?
Well, to be honest, I don't think that there has been any shift or change over the past few weeks. The first 24 hours after it was revealed that he had died, there were conflicting reports about what happened. But again, Professor Ruhul Amini told me that this young gentleman had committed some minor offenses and that he may have been fearful about going to jail as a result. But again, it is unclear, and it would be unfair to make any comment either for or against either argument that whether he was killed or whether he had committed suicide. The investigation is continuing, and he believes that it will get to the bottom of it.
Of course, I asked Dr. Marandi precisely what so-called minor offenses Dr. Ramin has allegedly committed. He didn't have an answer, and nor, he said, did anybody else who he asked.